Rock and roll. Oh, no time. And I'm just going to double check and make sure that we're live. I really like to always double check. And if you're watching this live, excuse me for always double checking, but there was a time that I went live and I had the video private and no one was able to see it. So I like to always double check, but I did just double check and we are live. So guys, welcome back to another episode of the A Better Me Equals a Better We podcast. I'm your host, Trey, or Trey Quan if you like the long version. We're back again for another episode, another very, very, very controversial topic that I'm excited to speak to you guys about. Um, and I brought four different guests with me, right? Usually I do like three panelists, two panelists, but I brought four different guests with me because I wanted as many perspectives as I can possibly get. Without further ado, I'll have my panelists introduce themselves, starting with the person next to me. Andre, why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Andre, his big little brother. I'm American. I'm black.
Okay.
Um, Not much really about me.
Okay, that's good.
I'm a simple person.
Episode 9, colorism. He's black. I think that's self-explanatory, right? And Carla, why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Trey. I'm Carla Lobo. I am a resident in Seaside, California, Monterey, Espada, Eyeball, sorry. I am a mother of three. I am a community activist and organizer, and I fight for equality in my area and to better my community and the people in my community. That's who I am.
Nice. I love that. I love that. I love that so much. That was one of the things that I love so much. And I thought that Carla really brought to the table that diversity and that activism. We need that so much in today's society. And Liza, why don't you introduce yourself for our panelists and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Liza. I am of Puerto Rican descent. I live in the Bronx, born and raised in New York City. I'm a mother of three kids as well. Well, they're not kids anymore; they're adults. And I'm very engaged and passionate about the sisterhood, about empowering other women of color and feeding back into our communities and our femininity, the strength of our femininity.
Super, super, super dope. I love that so much. The sisterhood aspect of it, Black women empowerment. We see so many different ways and types of divisions in our communities these days. So just to for each other is something very, very special. And last but definitely not least, Shiva, why don't you introduce yourself for our viewers and tell them a little bit about yourself?
I am Sheba. I am a mixture of West Indian and African American here in the U.S. I live in Arizona now, and I am really about just building people with information that they wouldn't get otherwise. So from any information I could possibly share, I love to share information. I don't like keeping it to myself. I like to help people grow, no matter who they are and what they are. If I can help you be better, I'm going to help you be better.
And that's dope. That's really where it all starts, right? That old school term, each one teach one. And then now with this podcast, I have to better myself in order for a better me. I can give that information so we can become a better we. So I think that that's amazing and a great view to have, like just in general. Again, the topic for today is going to be colorism, something that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? And one of the dictionary definitions for colorism, it says that it goes deeper than just who's pretty and who's not pretty. And it says that studies have shown that due to society's influence, many people associate beauty with lighter skin, right? But we've noticed that in talking with my panelists and in different aspects that sometimes colorism goes past being pretty. Sometimes we see a little bit of discrimination, just lighter, darker skin, and it influences in both directions, right? So where I like to start with all of the topics that we have is the beginning, like where does it start, right? So that's the first subtopic that I want to touch on, like where does it begin? And I want to ask you this question first. Do you think that colorism is taught, and if so, where?
Absolutely, I do think that it is taught. It's, I think, like all things, it begins at home. You know, there's a subversive, and it sounds a way, but there's a subversive way that we teach our children um, in homes. You know, you will have, because we're multiracial for the most part. We all have you know, some Caucasian in us, some Indian in us, and you know, obviously African American. And we teach our children. We'll have several children, and they'll be all of our kids, same parents and everything. Will be different shades of each other, and we kind of give, oh, she's the pretty one. We set roles within our families, like always, this is the one that works, this is the oldest one, they're more responsible, so forth. But I think that we inadvertently also assign um, easier roles to those that are prettier. The So we teach them that from home, and then you have, you know, society, TV, and so forth. All of your dolls are, you know, more fair skinned. That if you have smoother hair, you're perceived as being, you know, more attractive, and so that you have more opportunities and so forth. And I think that starts really, really young for our children.
I agree, and I really love the angle that you took with that, in the sense of that it might not be directly taught, right? Like someone is not always saying, "Hey, listen, the darker people look better," or the darker people should do this, or the lighter people are like that. But those little subliminal things that our children see, like you said, with a lot of the dolls, right? Like I remember the first time I saw a doll that looked like a family member of mine doll, like, and I was like, wait, this doll has box braids? Like I've never seen this before, right? Like usually the dolls, like you said, are a lighter skin, um straighter hair, and things of that sort. So those sort of things are kind of like subliminal ways that our children learn, or people in general learn colorism. And Carla, I'll ask you this question. Do you think it's safe to say that all children will experience colorism at some point in life?
Yes, I think that to piggyback on what Liza said is that it's taught. And because it's not only taught from one pathway, it's taught from all pathways. It's just taught differently. So you'll have a child that will experience colorism as soon as they walk into a classroom, as soon as they walk into a daycare, just by your appearance, because by nature, you're preconditioned to judge people, and society does that. And then your internal teachings will do that from your home, from school, from your peers. You know, you inherit um, an these biases without you even recognizing them. So yes, you can look at a child that's 5 years old, 3 years old, a brand new baby, you know, in the hospital. We know through decades of research that women of color are already treated badly in medical settings. So inheritedly, that trickles down to their children. So you experience it as young as birth all the way up until adulthood.
Def, def, Definitely true. And I I really love the take that you took in the sense of giving it a historical background to it, right? A lot of things, and if you guys look at our past episode, generational behaviors, we noticed that a lot of things are passed down, right? Like these are things that, because of a lot of things that we've been through, as a race, as a people, a lot of these traits, a lot of these habits, a lot of these thought processes are passed down inadvertently. So I definitely agree with that take, and it does seem like, for the most part, a lot of people do experience that. But me having a talk with Sheba prior to the episode, and she had told me that in her life, she had an experience any horrific like colorism incidents and things of that sort, which I thought was amazing. And for you being a Black woman and having not experienced something that could be that traumatic, what are some ways that maybe your family handled that particular topic, or what are some ways that you think that we can help our children combat colorism?
The ways I would say we were raised, we honestly were never taught color. My mother being from an island, you could literally be white and still be from that same island and still be a St. Tomian. So it was never a difference of Black, white, anything like that. It was always just humans, human beings, woman, man. It was never a issue. So for me, I even had to ask my siblings, have you ever experienced it? Both of my siblings, my one has, but not in the sense of our home. But in our home, we've never experienced it. So we don't, if we have, somebody make a statement, we wouldn't have known because we don't know what that is. So, just making sure your kids just understand that people are people has been, I think, my biggest upbringing. I grew up in a social worker home, so I've seen, a variety of kids growing up, and we were always just people, never Black, never white, just different situations of life.
And I really love that. I think that, with everything that's going on in the world, with a lot of the different acts that's going on, police brutality and things of that sort, right? And we're seeing a trend where it's usually a certain color of person, doing something to someone that looks, more like myself or Andre or something of that sort. And in that climate, you get people that now start to hate people that may actually love somebody like me, right? So everyone is not necessarily that person or that police officer that kneeled on George Floyd's neck. But now because of acts like that, and when they become frequent, now we start to look at everybody like that. So I really love your take on being able to say, like, listen, this is a human being. And I'll judge this human being accordingly, by the way that they act, and not really so much by the way that they look, like, because you guys weren't, necessarily taught that, right? So, Andre, what are some ways that you think that we can teach our children? And I know we just went over combating it, right? Like how to get around it. But what are some ways that you think that we can teach the children to kind of respect other children, regardless of what they look like or what culture they come from?
Also, with not putting a label on it, a lot of things that we do too as a people, and not just with like colorism, is that we group people without even realizing we do it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts from us. The same thing as you said earlier, it all starts from us. So it starts with, say, we're going out. Why do we always, as a people, hey, I'm going out with my white friends, like how she said too, we're all humans. Why do we put categories and specify certain things of that nature? So I say it starts with the way we say things and how we say it. Okay. We have to kill some of these terms that we use and don't even realize it as our people. Why, like, like I can't even think about it. You go ahead. I just lost my train of thought.
Well, I do like what you said about those categories, right? Like those hidden categories that we never actually really talk about. but we kind of all use certain terms to group people in certain ways. So like even with like I remember when I was younger, there was a thing where it was like, oh, light skins is not in, or dark skinned people is in, or they had like the light skin dark skin beef or whatever, right? Like just little stuff like that, right? Those little terms are forms of colorism, right? But they're a part of our culture. So when we do little things like that, I can see how it's adding to that, right? So when we use those terms, we're again inadvertently teaching our children colorism by using certain terms, grouping people a certain type of way, and our language, our vocabulary definitely plays a part in the way that our children look and think about things. So when I think about colorism and Sheba touched on colorism in the home and saying that she didn't experience it in the home. But I've had a conversation with Liza and she spoke to me about colorism in the home just in general, right? Like how it takes place in the home and it starts in the home and a lot of different ways that it affects children in the home. So Liza, do you think that we experience colorism in the home? And if so, what would you say are some common ways that we experience it in the home?
I mean, to be clear, my family obviously we're a mix of different things. So colorism is not something that, like Shiva was saying, we I was taught that people are people. Yet there are those little subliminal messages that will go through, like oh, because you're so light skinned, or comments about textures of hair that are not necessarily colorism, but they start grouping you towards those things. They start pushing you towards those things. So some of the ways that, um, I can't say that subjectively I experience colorism directly because I am light skinned. Most of my family members are either light brown skin or Indian skin. Um, but there's always that mention of texture or color, and you don't really notice it. I can't even pinpoint it for you right now. It's just something that's very quiet. It's just um, very subliminal. It's very, we will have over time, and not in my family, but in the culture, my Latino culture as a whole, you'll have one of the things that we did speak about is marrying lighter. You know, why would you marry somebody darker than you? You're already brown skinned. Or you already have, like, why don't you marry somebody who has nicer hair, or your nose is wider? You don't want to marry him, and those kinds of things are like, and effectively what it is um trying to make it more of a Caucasian kind of lilt to it. You want to have more Euro features than Afro features, and that's applauded more than having Afrocentric features. And so they won't not love you or not include you or but it would be nicer if you had nicer hair, or if you had, good hair, or if you had lighter skin or narrow nose, or your lips weren't so full. So those things are things that just kind of seep into the everyday, and you're not even noticing it. You're going out and you're thinking that you're dealing with everyone the same way, and you're not really noticing how it's affecting you subjectively, and how you're uh, objectively putting it out there towards others.
Yeah, definitely. That's like right on the money, right? When we talk about things being at home, it's not necessarily saying that like my mom don't love me or my dad doesn't love me or grandma or auntie or uncle. But I've seen this, and I'm not gonna act like most of my siblings, like we're around the same color. My younger brother is a little darker than. All right. He's a few shades darker than us, but for the most part, we're all black. So we didn't necessarily experience like you said, like colorism in the home. But then there are, like you said, those little small little comments that you'll hear concerning hair, concerning color, concerning those little things that kind of affect you when you're growing up, right? Tiffany said in our comments, and I want to talk about this a bit. She said media has a lot to do with colorism. They will display what color is more appropriate to display instead of displaying all. Carla, what are your thoughts on that comment?
Um, yeah, that's absolutely right. Media and society in general will play into what is in right now. African American people are in right now, right? For whatever reason, uh, for a lot of reasons. But yes, we have people that misappropriate the African American culture, right? That's popping, that's culture, and now everybody wants to be a part of it. And it's not the mannerism of how it's going about it; it's what it signifies to those in the culture and how someone else is presenting that. Right? It's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. And I kind of wanted to touch about colorism within the home.
Oh wait, here she is.
Can you all
We
hear me?
lost you for a second. You there,
Yeah, can you hear me?
Carla?
Can
One
you hear me?
second, guys.
Can you hear me now?
All right, guys. I do just want to let you know. I just want to get Carla back. Give me 1 second, guys. Let's see. I can see you on my end, Carla. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I just can't hear you. Um,
Can you hear me now?
try exiting the meeting and coming back for me.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. Carla will be right back in 1 second. Just a bit of technical difficulties, but I do want to hear. I definitely want to hear. Oh, so you guys could hear Carla. I just couldn't hear her. Okay, that was me. Sorry, guys. I don't know what was going on with me. There we go. I can see you now. Sorry about that. So you were touching on the colorism in the home.
Yes. So why that plays a big role in society is because, like Liza said, I'm Latina, and so I identify as Pan African because growing up, I knew I was Latina, but I wasn't raised in a Latina household other than my mom. We were raised in my community who was all African American, and so I am the lightest version of my mom. My mom is dark skinned, and she is full Latina. Her mother is light skinned, so you saw the colorism within my family because they come from a third world country. But that goes back to colonism, right? You're colonizing a country that has no idea that it's to assimilate you so that they can all look one way, and that's the European way. And so growing up, my mom was cast-eyed, her and her other sister, because they were the darker complexion that happened to be my grandpa. They were actually moved. My grandpa was, because he was so dark, was uh, was pinned with a murder where he had to leave El Salvador to come to America. Come to find out, it was never him that made the murder, but because he was darker, that committed the murder, because he was darker complexion, he was the first to be ostracized as he was the one that did it. And because of my mom and her sister were the darker skins, they were the first to be sent to America. So when we got here, it was already frowned upon to even associate with African Americans. So they were already told her, you stay away from Black people, right? She got married. She had 4 kids. My father left us, but we were left in an area where there was no Latinos around. So all we did was we were able to accommodate ourselves in a community that didn't see Black and white in our community. We saw our living situations, and that was our commonality. So growing up, my grandma would visit and she would say, "Oh, look at the pretty, she's so light, she's so beautiful." So I was already being funneled into this colorism, this portrayal of she's going to make it, she's going to do that. Well, I experienced colorism in a different way because I was supposed to be the poster person. But when I speak and when I carry myself, I didn't fit the box at all. So they're like, "Oh no, she is not it." Right. But yet I have my family and my inner families telling me, "No, this is how you're supposed to act. This is how you're supposed to be." And so when my mom got with my stepfather, who happened to be African American, she was shunned in the Latino community. We were already not in, but it was more so frowned upon because you are already getting with someone that's not going to propel you in the society that we are trying to propel in. You look like them, but you don't fit the box. You don't check the box because you don't speak like they need you to speak. You don't follow the rules like you need to follow the rules. So when you have society uplifting light skinned folks, whether you're Latino, whether you're Black, whether you're any other race, if you fit that mold, you could look mixed, you could pass for any ethnicity, then yeah, society will always uplift you. You will have that on TV. You will see that primarily because you fit that mold that's assimilating all that dates back to colonization. So my experience was I fit the part in every, because I can cut my hair, I can look anything. But as soon as I speak and the way I carry myself and the way my mannerisms are, the way I control a conversation or my aggression based on my tone, that's the problem. You don't fit the boulder. I don't care how you look no more. You can be all like if you want, but if you're not speaking, if you're not maneuvering the way you want them to, then it doesn't matter, because society will still uplift these light-skinned people, but because they are the token Black person or the token Latino person, that will facilitate their alternative motive, and that's still to assimilate everyone to one cult, one one way of being, and that is the majority that rules America, right? And that is facilitated throughout every country. You see it when I see it particularly in my culture, Latinos, because you have colorism within your own culture, and it's racism within your own culture, and then that racism goes outwards. They might not share it to yours because you're family, but you'll see it when they start talking about other ethnicities. Like Black people are negros in Spanish, and that's Black, right? But it's not identified as a loving word. No, it's looked upon and sounds as a very degrading word. So so yeah, we can teach our children in the homes not to see color, but that's not to say the people that they're around, the family that they come around, society, the friends that they've been around may start treating them differently. And until they have those uncomfortable conversations, you'll never know why someone will really allow you in their group, want you around, because you do have those situations where people use you to gain access to either your culture or something to better themselves, not to better people. And so, with my experience, I always check the box. In corporate America is a whole different story, because then it's not colorism, then it's sexism. Then it's, you're a woman, you shouldn't be speaking that loudly. You
Oh,
shouldn't be
don't
speaking.
jump, don't jump. That's two topics later. She too advanced. She ahead of the game. Don't worry, we're gonna
I
touch on that, Carla. We're gonna touch on that. Look, she ahead of the game, y'all. This is why I told you guys I promoted this episode for like a week because I was so excited about what these young ladies had to say. And I knew that they had a lot to say on this. And if I let her, she gonna do the whole episode by herself. The Carla, Liza, or Sheba, if I say go, they gonna do the whole episode by themselves, right? But I don't want her to jump
so
too
much.
far.
She touched
What
on
was that,
so much.
Liza?
She touched on so much that resonates deeply with me. First of all, I can just say, like, I check every affirmative action box that there is, and the colorism goes with the light skin because that's what's going to get me in the door. My Afrocentric ways, my Afrocentric hair, my so-called aggressive personality, which is just being a strong woman. Um, all of that stuff is like, okay, we'll overlook that because we can say we've got a woman, we can say we've got a Latina, we can say we've got a Black woman, but she's light skinned enough, just enough to pass under the radar. So when we say colorism, and this is something we spoke about with Miss Natalie, a lot of times you could have a woman that looks exactly like me, but she's maybe 2 shades darker, and we have equal qualifications. I'll get the job and she won't, just
Mm.
because I get that radar, you know. But she also, Carla also touched on something else about teaching our children not to see color. I don't know how feasible that is. And that's something I really want to touch on as well. Um, like we as human beings, our brains are wired to categorize things. That's what we do. We group things. And I don't know that not seeing color should be the goal. It should be, my personal opinion, obviously, is that not seeing color as something as better or less than, but something as part of the creator's beautiful penmanship on the world. Yes, you know, your sister is lighter than you and your cousin is 3 shades darker than you. We're going to see color. It's not segregating or relegating that color into better than or less than, more beautiful or less beautiful, more apt to be able to um, have intellectual aptitude or financial prowess because of skin color. I think we're going to see color always, and we should allow our children to see color, but not to group it into better or worse.
So can I touch on something right quick with what Carla
Yes,
said? So
please.
me being the darker one out of the three women here, here's the interesting fact. I've gone on job interviews multiple times and I've interviewed with a white person. And living in America, you get that, most of the time, the white person chooses the white person, usually. But I have been on interviews and not expecting, I purposely don't put color on my paperwork because you're going to see me for who I am, which is my whatever experience I've had, whatever I've done. And even my current job, I got it. I was her first interview. And I didn't expect to get hired. And my boss is white, not just like little white, long blonde hair, so on and so on. So to be honest with you, that's why I say a lot of times I don't experience it. I went in there with who I was, what my talent was, and I was the one hired. Was I shocked? One of the reasons I was shocked is I'm new to Arizona. So I wasn't really expecting to get hired, knowing I haven't been here for a couple of years. I don't really know Arizona rules, but I got hired. And it wasn't a question I knew by the end of the week. She was, even when she talked to me, as if she hired me at that moment. Oh, you would be doing this. Oh, you would be doing this for me. Like it was not a moment of, oh, if you did it. She talked to me like I had already started that day. So being darker, for whatever reason, I'm gonna be honest, my last couple of jobs, I interviewed for a job before I moved to Arizona. I was over the phone. Again, I got hired off of my credentials, not because I was Black. They had no clue who I was because I didn't video chat my interview. And that's why for me, I think because of what my parents have done over the years with us, I don't think about it. I don't think about my skin color. I think about more how I carry myself as a woman, how I look, and not so much the world perceives me, but as a woman, a classy woman, or whatever I choose to be that day, that's how I walk around. So that's why, and I hear what you're saying. I've had conversations with not family, but friends who've had colorism problems. Not me, which is weird because I am not the lightest person in the bunch. You would
I
think I would
I
have
love
ran
it.
into that, but I really haven't.
Yeah, I love that perspective so much. Because again, like you said, one, I just want to commend all of you ladies here, and Andre as well. I know Andre just let me know he had something he wanted to chime in about it, but I just wanted to commend all of you guys before we go any further, just for being unapologetically you, right? And although that you guys' perspectives may differ, like I told you guys prior to the show, someone needs to hear it, right? There's someone that looks just like Andre, that looks just like Sheba, who has never experienced colorism, right? And then there are people who are Latino American that can pass for different races, like Carla, or maybe somebody that's a Latino American that looks more Afrocentric, like Liza, right? So I just love the fact that you guys are being unapologetic to yourself. And even in the comments, right? Like I see, usually I read the comments, but we have them up on the side now. But I'm seeing paragraphs in the comments. Even our viewers are being like unapologetically themselves in the comments and really telling it like it is. So I just want to really commend you ladies for that. And I really appreciate you ladies and your opinions. And Andre, you said you had something you want to add to that.
Yeah. No, I said like just with certain things like that, saying like how she can go through a interview and then it's based on what you say, and then it touches on the conversation that me and you had a while ago, where it's like you as a black man, they never seen you a day in your life. You could put your resume, you could have been the Secret Service or the president, but they see your first name.
Right,
What's the first thing that pops in their mind? Oh, he's black.
right,
Traquan. He
right.
has a quan at the end of his name.
Yes.
He's black. Like it's impossible. Maybe I might be able to get away with it. Andre, I don't know. Maybe he's in between, but like,
Right, right, right,
and it comes on the fact of like, you sometimes that judgment is is not meant in a negative way.
hmm
I was at work a few days ago, and I'm a truck driver, so I go to a lot of different stops, and it was a daycare, and it was like mostly like it was a lot of like white people. It was in a white neighborhood, like
hmm
so. I say hi. Anytime I come into somewhere, I introduce myself. Like I talk. When I'm leaving out the door, the lady that's at the front, which is a white lady, I hear her talking to one of the other ladies, and she says, "Oh, he's like so polite and like well spoken." And then like I didn't take that as a compliment. I felt disrespected.
Like, what was that supposed to be? Like,
That's what I'm saying. It's like it's
right,
the prejudgment. And the same thing is I also play football. One of my coaches didn't know, like, I'm literally one of the people, I'm on the football field 9 times out of 10. I'm dancing on the sideline. I'm the big 6'3" black dude that's always trying to have fun. One of my other coaches comes out because he was so comfortable and says, "Oh, I wasn't expecting this from you. I thought you were like one of these hood dudes. And why put that category and put me in there if I gave you no reason to?" So it's like it's that
right,
prejudgment.
right, right, right. And a lot of us are prejudged based off the way that we look. It sucks. It really does suck because a lot of times, especially for men, I can speak from personal experience where I've had a woman, I've walked past somebody coming from work, like not even paying attention to this old woman on 34th Street, and she clutched her purse. And I was like, she made me nervous when she clutched it because I'm like, why is she moving so swift like that? Like, what's going on? And then the whole time I realized she's clutching her purse, and I'm like, wait, what's going on here, right? So definitely that prejudgment based off the way that we look. And then talking about colorism, we always see and realize that it really does stem from racism, right? Colorism really does stem from racism, and the history lesson that we've gotten from all of our panelists thus far. That's something that we see, right? So another subtopic that I really wanted to jump into, right, is a phrase that I hear a lot in the minority communities, right? And it's just basically, I'm not blank, I'm blank, right? And we hear that a lot, sometimes in good ways where people are basically standing firm and where they come from and really showing love to their culture, like, hey, listen, I'm not this, I'm this. But then we hear it in different ways where, in my opinion, in the form of self-hate, where people don't want to claim where they're from. Like, I've had people tell me they're from like Aruba or something like that. And it's like, but your daddy and them lived down the block for like 7 generations. Like, when y'all moved to Egypt? Like, I'm confused. Like, how are you Egyptian today? I thought you was Jamaican last week. Like, what happened? I'm confused, right? So we see a lot of different instances where people are like that, or different instances where maybe some cultures within the Black culture don't accept other cultures, right? Like, so I've seen instances where people, where someone would say, "Hey, are you Black?" And it's like, "Nah, I'm not Black. I'm West Indian." I mean, what box you check? What's Indian or black? Like, I'm like, I think it's only African American. Like, I don't know if they got a West. I don't know if they have a West Indian box. But I'm just saying, like, or even in the Latino community, right? Like, do not call a Dominican a Puerto Rican or a Puerto Rican a Dominican. They're gonna lose it, right? They're gonna lose it, right? So, you hear a lot of different instances where people do things like that, right? I'm just curious to know, Carla, do you think that there is a group, or multiple groups of people who don't want to be a part of their ethnic group?
A multiple, well, let's talk about people that migrate, right? Not, I don't like to call them immigrants because they migrated here. We have a lot of Haitians and a lot of not Brazilians, but Belize, people from Belize, that upon their arrival here, and even Latinos that come, from their countries here, they're explicitly told not to identify or be around Black people for the simple fact of that they're troublemakers. And if you have conversations with anybody that comes, especially in New York, that come from these other countries, that's why they don't identify. You have a lot of West Indies or Haitians that say they're not African, they're Haitian, they're not Black, they're Haitians, they're not African American, right? But it's surface. That's what we're identifying it as. A surface level, I'm not going to identify as Black for this, that, and the other reason. But if you really think about your lineage and where everything comes from, it originates from Africa. So even if there's colonizations that happen, there was already people of African descent in those countries. That's why you have folks that are African American and have blonde hair, blue eyes, but their skin are dark, right? You have folks in different parts of Europe that are dark, that have never even seen light-skinned folks in these rural areas. So when we talk about people that don't want to identify, there's a purpose why they don't want to identify, right? And whether we're going to accept that purpose or not is not up to for us to say. All we can do is educate them and see where they take that from there, because who are we to say, well, you can't identify as Black, because then you start a whole conversation and a whole argument, depending on how intense and how involved they are with their own culture, right? Because you don't know if they're already being simulated in their own culture and in their own country when they come here. Now, folks that are already here also depends on their life experience, because you have a lot of people that don't identify with African American because of the negative conduits that society has put on us. And that's where it comes from. It all comes from what society puts forth as an example of what we should, or within the last 5 years, start identifying as African American because it was a thing to do. The lady from the NAACP, Dolzia, right? It was a big thing when she started identifying as African American, right? But it started back then, right? And so you see a lot more people not identifying with it, because again, I want to play back with society and publicizing it. You have the Kardashians that have misappropriate African American all over, in all accents of it, right? And I say that because they have given society a pathway to be okay to not claim a culture that is funneling this society to have braids, to wear clothes a certain way, to be thick, to have coarse hair, so I think that individuals that don't identify or don't want to identify is a personal or something that they've gone through. What I don't understand is those individuals that identify as African American but don't see anything is wrong in society when you are put outside of your circle of non-African American friends, right? You are perceived differently when you're in a group of people that are not all African American and that are mixed or that are Caucasian. But the moment that you put yourself in a situation, or not a situation, but a an area or a gathering that is just all African American, it is then that those that don't identify become weary or unsettled because either their job might be on the line, something could negatively affect them in a way, but it all comes down on how they're perceived in society,
Mm,
not anything else. It identifies how they're going to be identified in society. So
yeah,
uh,
that's deep.
Can
That's
I?
really deep. Yeah, go ahead, Liza. Go ahead.
Oh, that was
I
me.
think that levels to
Oh,
that.
I'm
I
sorry,
think
Shiva.
sorry.
Go ahead, Liza. I'll
I
go ahead
yield.
after. What I was just going to say, though, to something that Carla said that a lot of people don't know is that quite a bit ago, more than 5 years ago, there was a documentary made that actually scientifically proves where we all originated from. But the interesting thing is the day that documentary played, it was a football season and it was a Sunday. So on average, how many people do you assume watch that documentary? And I watched that with my father. So I literally, it shows you where we start at and how we became who we are. So, and when I say we, I mean everybody, whoever it may you be, Pacific Islander, whatever you are, but it literally showed you. But on average, you're not going to have multiple people watching this on a Sunday when the world loves football. So, I mean, I like I said, there's certain things that make you wonder because again, we showed the world the truth, but nobody saw that truth that Sunday.
Yeah, 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 and that goes into to something that Tiffany said in in our comments about the media, and how the media does things to kind of push the colorism agenda or specific agendas just in general, right? So playing that, like you said, when the world loves football on a day like that, a lot of people might not, see something like that. Liza, you said you had something you wanted to add.
I mean, I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of some of the things that Carla was saying and kind of spin off on I think that there are levels to it. I think that there's culture, there's race, and there's ethnicity or nationalism. So I see within the Latino community, particularly something that we discussed, in our preamble to this podcast. I am very adamant about the fact that being Latina is my culture. It's not my race. And Latinos are not a race, they are a culture. Because what you will see, especially Caribbean Latinos and South American Latinos, Central American Latinos, what's not really, and to speak also to what Sheba was saying about our origins, the information is there for anyone to see whether it's on a Sunday or whatever. We've got Google, you can find this information. It's facts. The motherland is the motherland. We all come from there, and there's no disputing that. We are all part of the African diaspora. When it comes to being Latina, subjectively, I can speak to that. Something that's not widely known or spoken about is that of the 10 to 12 million slaves African slaves that were brought to the so-called New World, less than 10% of them were brought to British North America. The rest were brought to the Caribbean and Central and South America. So being Latino, and those are where you have these Latino cultures. You will have people who are indigenous, you will have European people, you will have African, and then you have the mix of all three, whether you are mulatto, mestizo, mulatto, and all the variations thereof. So I feel that within the Latino culture, you will also see that, and you see that in other cultures in Africa, South Africa, in Europe, where Black people are again and again, Black people, the race, are again and again relegated to this part of society. They're always the people that society is built on the backs of, yet none of the accolade is given to them. And so they're always trying to minimize that. I think when it comes to, and why I wanted to do the subsets or shed a little bit of light on the subsets of um, ethnicity and culturalism and race, is that when it comes to African Americans, Carla is very right. I've met Jamaicans, I've met people from Nigeria and from West Africa, other parts of West Africa, that do not want to be associated with American blacks. It's not just being black. They identify as being black. Clearly, they're African or whatever, but they don't want to identify. And so I think that there's also that comes with the nationality. And when you look at it across the board, white, black, Latino, whatever, nobody wants to be American, as it were. Everyone disassociates themselves from American. And within the black race, within the black community, whether you're Jamaican, the West Indians who are like, I'm not black, I'm not a Yankee, is what they will say. I'm this, I'm from Antigua, I'm from, wherever they're from, but they don't want to be associated with American blacks because there's a certain level of, as Carla said, where it's nefarious, to be American black. They don't have, so that's what that particular subset is distinguishing themselves from, not necessarily not being black, just not being Yankees.
So the funny
I want
thing is, like,
okay.
I have the benefit of having both of those worlds. I have a mother who is an island woman, and I have a father who's black. So I am the Yankee child because I'm her only child born in the States. But culturally, I am more of a West Indian woman than I'm an American woman. I get what you're saying about being Black America, but it's America. I feel America as a whole has such a bad name to it that nobody wants to be African American. Nobody, it's not even Native American anymore. It's just now Native. Depending on who you're talking to, nobody wants to be American. And I get it. Why would you want to be American when we do the things we do? We take the way we take, we say what we say as if we have no regards to anything else, versus a lot of these cultures have something to stand on. Yeah, there might be the difference of colors because my stepmother is Filipino and she has a niece who is darker, and she does get treated differently because she's half Black. They have the same thing. They have their darker Philippines in the Philippines. They get treated differently. So, and I feel like it's across the board, but at the end of the day, they rather be Filipino from the Philippines than to be American from America, because we are just, we don't have the best history of anything other than just being here.
I mean, you ladies, y'all really.
I just
Go
want to
ahead.
add to that
Come on,
is
come on with
that
it.
is that the reason why there's so much of this going is because America itself has put it on us by having us identify who we are on paper. So again, America government system is destroying us with a pen and paper, not subconsciously, but just like irrelevant from anything else, right? Because we're so accustomed to be like, okay, I'm Latino, I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna put that. And then within that, even in school, they teach it at school, right? Because when they have these tests or these anything, the first couple of questions, the demographic questions, is what nationality are you? They're already dividing you. They divide you by your nationality, and then they divide you within your culture, right? If you're Mexican American, if you're Central American, are you Hispanic or Latino? Hispanic and Latino is not even a culture. That's Latino is a language, right? And so again, it's government already predisposing us and separating us. So there is already infighting. So we have these colorisms that just negate us even more within our cultures, so that we can then not have the uncomfortable conversations and say, like I had with my grandma, why would you tell my niece that she's so pretty, but my other niece is right here and is dark and that's pretty. I would love to be her color. How shocked was my third generation grandma from a third world country, right? I'm sorry, a third world country grandma that knew nothing other than she's light and she like everybody light. But here goes her grandchild, that's the light one, that's telling her, well, I don't want to be light, right? And that just debunks everything that they know. Why? Because we're assimilated. They want us to infight in this mannerism. So stop checking those boxes. Sorry.
Hey, listen, and it's so crazy that you just said that, because Florence definitely said in our comments that's why we all should check the other box. Uh, So for me personally, I've done that a few times. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. My name is Traquan, so I've checked the other box. I know I can't check any of the other ones, so I checked the other box a few times. Just because.
I,
Um,
I feel like checking the other boxes just saying I'm black, but I'm not gonna tell you.
I mean that can also be it, at times too, right? But one of the things that I really loved about this portion of the conversation, having you ladies all being from different backgrounds, and Sheba, hearing the way that you spoke about being, West Indian or Caribbean, and but yet being American as well, but being raised more so West Indian Caribbean, and I, currently live in a West Indian neighborhood, and one of the things that I hear a lot from the people is that, oh, you Americans, y'all lazy, y'all this, y'all that, and just a bunch of, how much I've heard people tell me, like, oh, I don't like y'all Americans, I don't like America, I don't like this, I don't like that, but then, for me, that only sucks for me when I look at it, because no matter how you guys, and when I say you guys, I mean like the people that have said that to me, no matter how you feel about Black Americans, I promise that if you get pulled over, they're gonna treat you just like me, right? And I think that that's one of the things that we have to take into consideration. That can be a conversation that we can have over the kitchen table, but it shouldn't be something that divides us in public. Like, I think that we should always, regardless of your group, and to be honest with you guys, and this is just my personal opinion, even when it comes to Caucasian white people, I love all people. That's just me. Like, it's not a group of people I can say like I do not, like, if there's an issue that I have with somebody, it's with that individual and not with that group, right? Like, I don't have an issue with an entire group or race or culture of people, right? Um, Everything is personalized. My experience with you, right? If I go to McDonald's, up the block and the service is not good, that don't mean I'm gonna stop going to all McDonald's. I'm gonna write a review and stop going to that McDonald's, but I'm gonna go to the one with the good service, right? But we have to, in my opinion, build a sense of cohesiveness in public. Like, we should always be together, because at the end of the day, no matter what, West Indian, Caribbean, or certain groups of Latino, because there are Dominicans, even Puerto Ricans that are the same color as me. The same, I've seen Dominicans and Puerto Ricans the same color as Andre, right? Like, so regardless of what ethnicity you come from, understand that if there's an issue and there's a target on the minority community, and I think that's a known fact at this point in the world that we live in, right? I don't think it's a conspiracy theory anymore. The facts will show it. The percentages will show it. There's a target on minorities. We have to be united. There's no other way that we can put it. Now, if you want to tell me how lazy I am, if you want to tell me how lazy I am when you come to dinner, and you bring that jerk pork that I like, and the curry chicken and all, and we can talk about it over dinner, like, yo, y'all lazy, maybe y'all should take this, and then we can all kind of better each other, right? Take little things from each other, even with, Latinos, but in public, around each other, we have to, and it's the same thing with my kids. I have an older son and a younger son. One is 10, one is 1. And I tell my older son, like, listen, this is your brother. Like, when it comes down to your brother, like, if you argue with your brother, this is my younger brother. If we argue, I would tell him, listen, don't be acting crazy in front of people. But when we get in the house, what's that you were saying when we was in? What's that what you were saying when we was in after school? Like, but when we in front of people, we never gonna do that. And I think that we have to create that. And Kaya said in our comments as well, be united at all times, not just sometimes, right? Like, be united at all times. And you ladies, when I tell you I had like 17 more questions, but the way y'all answer all my questions before I could even ask them, um, I'm gonna actually, because in the essence of time, because I don't want to keep you guys too long, because I do try to be about an hour, um but in the essence of time, I want to look at a few topics from a business aspect, and I know Carla touched on that a little earlier. um And Carla, do you think, I'm not going to say do you think, because I know what you think, right? As a matter of fact, just for the sake of the podcast, do businesses discriminate when hiring based on colorism?
Yes, yes, and I've been in corporate America since I was 14. And I've been at all levels. I've started from the bottom up to corporate America, high position paying jobs. And yes, you will come in and they will hire you as long as you don't have a decision making position that will yield a company's profit a certain way. When you start being in a position like that, you really don't have a say. You are really just the yes person. So you may be given certain allowances to make certain decisions, but it will never be the bottom line in profit when it comes to corporate America, because you are not, whether you have the credentials, whether you're good on paper, you could be with a company for as long as 10 years, but the levels that you have to climb in corporate America will always be dictated by how you look and how you carry yourself. You could be an assimilated, and like Trey, I don't have a distinct dislike for race or anything. I have a distinct dislike for people that don't do right by other people. And so for me, I categorize them as pilgrims, because you have nothing else but ill will feelings for this person, because yes, you're going to give them a little bit of the leeway, but when it's a decision making, the decision will not be falled on that person. And think about all the people that are on these Fortune 500 positions. How many of them are minorities? And if they are a minority, they've created a job for you, an equity person, or a quality control, or maybe an HR director who you hire on. Why? Because you're still not making a decision. You interview people and you might say, yeah, let me hire them on, but you still have to present it to somebody else, right? You're still the middle person. And even if you are a CEO, right, you're not a CFO, you're not controlling the money. So yes, they will bring you in with any incentive, because why? Financial freedom is what they think that you want and know that you can attain with a 9 to 5, breaking your back off to some. It's a new age slavery. That's what it is. They'll put you in positions as long as you're playing the part. The moment you deviate from that part, or you start noticing something is not right and you start speaking upon it, it doesn't matter how you illustrate it. That is when your ultimate dismissal of that job will come. And trust me, I've been fired from jobs just for calling out simple things like, hey, she should be able to get 2 months off to go visit her mom that's dying in Mexico off of family leave. But do you know that are they gonna tell that employee that? No, because that housekeeper needs to be able to clean those 14 rooms that are coming down the pipeline to make that 5-star hotel make that revenue that's needed by the end of that month, because they have a quota to meet. If you're not facilitating that quota for them in any way, shape, or form, well, then there's steps to get rid of you. And you know how it is first? Your performance. And if it's not your performance, if you check the boxes and you got it, it's your tone. It's the way you speak to people. It's something that they will find if you don't fall in line to facilitate whatever
Yeah,
their agenda is. So yeah, it may not be color wise, but if you show any type of culture that's outside of their norm in that business, then you will automatically be filtered in a system where they will break you down and get you out. And it doesn't always happen right away, but I've seen it to 10 years, to 25 years. And I'm like, wow, all she said was, or all he said was, right?
yeah,
Um, but because we don't think that's going to happen, we don't document anything. So we
right.
might have had a conversation and you might have been right, but who knows who was there to back you, right? And so and that's my personal experience. I've seen it happen to other folks too, especially when you start climbing that ladder. When you start climbing that ladder and you start getting a little notoriety, especially if you're a woman, in a woman of color, or a woman that they thought you were a woman of color, but you weren't all the way a woman of color, and then you showed your assertiveness, well, now you're aggressive. Now you're tone. They'll even tone police you in your emails. How you tone police somebody in an email when there's supposed to be no tone? There's supposed to be words, terminology, and you take it. Why? Because they're associating your tone and the way you maneuver yourself with how you've written that email. I've said please and thank you in so many emails, and people have been, you don't have to be so rude. Oh, I'm being
Mm,
rude.
yeah,
Well,
So
yeah,
I think that's when it's the proof in the pudding that it is colorism, it is racism, because I could sit here and say the exact same thing my Caucasian counterpart has said in the same tone, using the same words. But Liza, I feel you're a little combative. I feel that whenever I stand my ground, I could stand it in the same way that a white woman does. But when I do it, it's combative, it's aggressive, I have an attitude. I'm being very urban. It's like, what? Wait, I'm sorry. We just use the same words, and I could be written up and a reprimand or even let go, where it's like, way to go, Susan. You really stood up for yourself and asserted yourself. So it's so evident. It's so evident.
yeah,
You can't.
yeah.
I'm Carla.
So, so the funny thing is, Carla saying that I had a supervisor who wanted to downplay my wonderful efforts. But the funny thing is, everybody in the office already knew. My mentor knew what I did. So I did used to document everything, to the point that when she tried to write my PR and downplay who I was, there was so much proof that she had to rewrite my PR. I appealed it. She had to write it. She had to write it to the truth of who I was. I did more than she ever did. And at that time, I did have a white supervisor. In a sense, I not to say it like this, but she had the red hair, so very, very white, more paler skin than your average white person. But I learned how to document real early, because you're not going to play me down for what I actually do to what you assume that I do. She tried to make it seem like I was simple, and I had proof of everything else.
I love that.
So,
Like, I really love that, and I hope if you're viewing this is free game. Like, even if you didn't take notes, just listening. Like, now I know if you know that something is not looking a little right, you better start writing it down. Right, this is free game. Y'all ladies is giving out free game right now. I do want to address one of the comments that I saw, and I just definitely want to just say I apologize if I came off in a way that I did not want Caribbean, West Indian people to be proud of where they were from. So if I came off in that way, in any way, shape, form, or fashion, I apologize. I think that people should be proud of where they're from. I think that it's okay to be proud of where you're from first, and then be pro America second. Like, that's completely and utterly fine. The point that I was trying to make in what I was saying at that particular time was just that people are going to group us the same regardless of where we're from, and they don't know where we're from when they're grouping us. They treat us the same when they see us, when we're being targeted. We should be united in public. Now, the conversations that we have amongst each other, that's the conversations we have amongst each other, but just in public, I believe that we should always have a sense of togetherness. Embrace where you're from, love where you're from, regardless of your culture, Latino, whichever part of that ethnicity you're from, or culture that you're from, I should say, because as Liza said, it's not really a ethnicity; it's more of a culture. So whatever part of it you're from, embrace that. Caribbean, West Indian, embrace that. But in the midst of all the turmoil that we're going through, regardless of what it is, we have to be together first, right? And in the midst of when we're standing in front of the turmoil together, I don't care. But for me personally, I don't care if you're from the Caribbean. I don't care if you from DR, PR, or wherever. Let's just be together. So I definitely just wanted to put that out there, because I want to provide a safe place for us to give our opinions, and I never want anyone to feel like we're downing anyone's culture or anything of that sort. So
You say put it together as a whole. It's like the same thing how we talk about where we'll be like, okay, I'm from Brooklyn, but then you look at somebody different and be like, oh no, they're from the Bronx. But let somebody else talk about us from outside of New York. Oh, now we New Yorkers, we stick
right,
together.
like we from New York,
Like
right?
we New Yorkers, like
If I if I
I'll talk trash about the Bronx all the time. Unless somebody not from New York, oh nah, don't talk about New Yorkers.
now we New York as a whole, right? Like
Yeah.
if we go to another city, I got family in Harlem, Queens. I think everybody from Brooklyn, me personally, I think being from Brooklyn is a nationality. That's just my personal opinion. But I think every borough is very proud of where they're from, especially if you were raised there. Um,
Embrace as a whole.
Right. Like we all love where we're from. Everyone will like, yo, Harlem all day or Bronx all day. But if we go out of state, you know how many basketball games, how many traveling games I went to with people from different boroughs, and we would talk mess on the bus, like, oh no, because in Harlem is like this and Brooklyn is like this. As soon as we get to Philly and that team, like, nah, we from New York. Like
That's
we
it.
from New York, right? And that's kind of the sort of what I'm talking about, in that sense. Like, we can have our little family squabbles or whatever. Like it is what it is, family fight. But it's time for us to really get together and get together, right? Like that's where I'm at, with it for me. Like I really want to get us together and get us in a place where everyone can see that, right? That we're together. Um, Now, going back to the dark skin, light skin thing, right?
Hmm.
How do you think, or what are some ways, or is there one way that you think that we can get past like the what people call back in the day the dark skin, light skin beef? Like, how can we get past that and just eradicate dark skin, light skin?
You have to do it as a whole. I say that's where it starts from. It always starts from us. We already go through enough drama and adversity as just being black in general. So sometimes, like I say, we do it to ourselves. Sometimes we divide ourselves from the inside, from that, oh, he's dark skinned, he's light skinned, he's better fit for this, and we throw that category out there. And sometimes that's embarrassing for us as a whole, where I always say, it's nothing scarier. People could be like, oh no, these black people, I don't trust them and this and that, coming from other people, races, the whole nine. But it is nothing scarier in the world than black people sticking together as a whole.
Yeah,
That scares these people that try to bring us down. There's nothing that would scare them more than seeing us united.
I
And that's
love
the
that.
same thing where we start protesting and things like that. That scares them.
Yeah,
Even when it's peaceful protesting.
yeah.
Like,
Scary. Now they got to make it out to seem like, nope, nope. Someone yelled too loud.
yeah,
Different,
they
different.
said, oh, they coming together as a
Like the comments
whole.
are
We gotta
saying,
stop
this
this.
is slavery, this is basically house and field, and there was a purpose for that, and that purpose is still being manipulated and executed. A house divided can never be united. You know what I mean? There's nothing more fearful than us together. If we are economically self-sufficient, if we are educating ourselves, if we are spending our money within our communities, if we are uplifting one another, we are not a minority. They use that term as minority, but that's they ridiculous. The numbers say otherwise. We are the majority, and if we become united, then they would have to be afraid and go scuttle from where they came from, and they don't want to see that. The only way that they there's a I'm an activist on way different levels. Pedro Albizus Campos, he was a Puerto Rican activist, and he was a nationalist, and he had a phrase that's been often quoted, and he would say, "No que somos pequeños, es que estamos de rodilla." It's not that we're small; it's that we've been on our knees. They don't want to see us stand, and so when they divide us, they keep us on our knees. They keep us from standing tall and standing strong. And until we can get that right within ourselves, we playing into their hands. We need to get that right with it. It's not about them. It's about us. We need to unite together and stand for each other and support each other and uplift each other. And once we do that, we're unstoppable.
So the funny thing is to kind of go on what you said, I'm a believer that if we ask what you would say colored people, maybe Mexicans, blacks, whatever you want to say, anybody who's not white, if we honestly came together, we could honestly take over the world. We are a much larger group than they will ever be. And the more that they tend to mix with us, there is then less of them. So at the end of the day, if we come together, we could stop a company from producing whatever they're producing if we just literally stand up. Not stand up for a week and then flip, but just stand up. We have more control than anybody else. And it's not just blacks, but we are all considered, we are all meant to dislike each other. Like you said, we're all meant to not to get along. And I've learned that more here in Arizona than I have ever in California. But literally, if we come together, we could take over the world.
Facts. Big facts.
I agree. I wanna go to our comments really quickly. Only because I really like to be very interactive in our comments, and because you ladies have been teaching, and we can all kind of see the comments on the screen, and I've been throwing them up on the screen for us all to see. I really like to get to some of them from time to time. So in our comments, we have Desi in our comments. She said yes, unity. She also said it's embedded. And then Eric said that it's deeply embedded since slavery. And then Natalie said in our comments, exactly, we have to build a stronger foundation within. Eric also said in our comments, people have been programmed to feel that way. And then Natalie also said, Andre, you're talking, that is rich. And then Eric also agreed, and he said, exactly, Dre. Unity equals power. Florence said in our comments, and I'll throw that one up for you guys to see. She said, if all people would come to the realization that we are all humans, let's love and care about each other, humans. And Natalie said in our comments, and I'll say Miss Natalie so we know the difference. She asked Liza to teach. She said, teach, Liza. And Nikki said in our comments, Liza, you better. Eric said it's systematic. And then Nikki said, "It's the knowledge for me." And I think for me, this entire episode, you ladies are so knowledgeable, not just on this particular topic, but on your individual history. And it shows, and I, I personally appreciate you ladies bringing what you bring to the table individually, and making this such a rich conversation. And then Natalie said in our comments, Rosa Parks, they didn't let us from the back of the bus because they knew they were nice. They lost money. How much money did the bus company miss? And that's something that Natalie talks to me a lot about, in the sense of, hit them where it hurts, hit them in the pocket, right? And things of that sort. And Devon said in the comments, what does that stand up look like? So, you know, I just want to thank everybody in our comments for interacting, with us, being a part of the conversation with each other, with us. I want to ask each of the panelists a question, before we get out of here, because I really,
Wait,
really,
wait. Can I
really,
answer the question? Trey, sorry, I don't mean
yeah,
to interrupt. I didn't answer
go
the
ahead.
question. I wanted to answer the question. For me,
Oh,
what
go
it
ahead.
looks like to change colorism within our own selves and our community is first and foremost opening the door for those that cannot come through the door. So if you have a position that's coming in your job, you find somebody in your community that can fill that job. Putting Black women in positions of power that they haven't, putting those that don't look like us in these positions that are going to make change, but also spaces like these, open spaces where you can come and learn this information and through other people's experiences without any judgment or any look back like, oh, guess what, this happened or not, but just having real conversations and actually learning from each other. I mean, just the simple documentation at your job can save your job or even get you a promotion. And I'm talking about phone calls that you get, right? Follow up with an email per a conversation, just to reiterate the conversations that has happened in order for you to propel in your own position and then feed that to the next person that will be filling your position, or prepare someone to fill in your position because you know you're going to another position. That's how you elevate people within your own community that look like you and those that don't look like you. Because if we keep finding these folks that look like Caucasians to fill these positions, they're not going to know our experience, our individual experiences, because as the majority, we are so accustomed to following what someone of the Caucasian, the way they look, to follow them, that we think that is key and that's how we're going to propel. But if we change that narrative, like I keep seeing, if we hit them where it hurts, we are the money. We bring the money. Arizona is actually one of the racist states that you can be in, because they still um, uh, allow teachers to punish their kids physically. Not only that, they have put a law in place where you can't even teach ethnic studies. They don't even celebrate Martin Luther King Day. They celebrate the Confederate that tried to stop. But what I'm saying is, if we are put in a position when we could start being the norm, if we're the narrative, then others will follow. When I'm always in a position, like Liza said, they're going to choose me because I will fit the color before they even hear me speak or anything, right? If they see me firsthand. But if I'm willing to see someone out there that has the same, it's nothing for me to give that up, because I know that I can go and find another job. We have to be comfortable to go and work at McDonald's 9 to 5 if we need to, if we don't make it that one job, and we let our sister get through, because she is going to bring us through too. Right? I make sure that I'm always transparent, because the next person that follows, I'm putting in that position, because I know I'm going to come out of it. And even if I'm fired from that position, hey, you need to go apply for this because I just got canned and I know you can get it. This is how you can go. So we have to
Yeah.
prepare our people to be put in these positions to change this narrative so we can be the norm. I'm going to be the norm, right?
Right.
And
Right.
these spaces
Yeah.
right here to have these conversations, because you don't have too many of these spaces. And you don't have too many people that are willing to talk about their own experiences, even if they're negative. We see it
Yeah.
right now in social media. All you see is happy-go-lucky. You know, facial expressions and the pretty faces are the ones that make it to 1,000 followers, and all this stuff. So if you're going to be that person that's going to be out there, then be about it, right? If you're going
Yeah.
to partake in society, partake it, but at the same time, post something that they're going to read also. Like, Breonna Taylor still is out here and nobody's done that. The George Floyd, we still have that is still lingering and nothing's really been done, right? We have to have these loud, uncomfortable conversations in order to change the narrative so we can be the norm.
Yeah. I agree
I'm
with that.
a
And
little
I,
bit.
I, I really like what you said, in the sense of having these conversations, creating spaces where you have these conversations. And this is why, one, I really love the comments and interactions there. But even when people share the video, right? Even when you guys have people watch this at a later date, or if you guys have conversations like this with your coworker, right? All this is an idea, right? When we think of these different topics for myself, the production team, and we put these topics together, these are just things that we can talk about and take back with us to our friends, to our families. And now I have, right now, four different perspectives, right? That when I need to have the conversation about colorism with a family member, or even if I'm looking at it myself, right? Now I have four different perspectives that I can help navigate with, right? So I think what Carla said is 100% right. Like, it's time to start having these difficult conversations. And Florence said in our comments, for your employment, it is not in black and white. It did not happen. Document, document, document. So like that's a reoccurring theme that we're seeing. Like, in your place of employment, regardless of how comfortable you are, regardless of how good you are at your job, you should always document things. If something doesn't look right, you have to document it. You have to cover yourself, and that's not even just colorism. I don't care if my boss is black. I don't care if my boss is what society calls minority. Well, from any one of those groups, if something doesn't look right, you always document it, because the last thing you want is for somebody to have 100-page document on you, and all you have is word of mouth with no dates, no times, no. So that's just proper work etiquette. So just little things like that, right? That maybe somebody might not have thought of. Definitely something good. And then let's see here. Natalie said, when you have a seat at the table, don't be afraid to walk away from the table. So that's also true. What were you gonna say, Liza?
So that's a little bit more extremist in that way. I feel like I don't want to sit at your table. I want my own table. Somebody said in the comments, they were like, "Well, what does standing look like to you?" It means black-owned businesses. It means spending in our community. It means helping each other, build each other, being financially responsible. We're not taught about finances. I saw one of the previous podcasts, generational curses, poverty. We're not taught how to be financially aware and astute, how to invest, we need those things within our community. We need to hit them where it hurts. And that means, you know, stop with the labels and all the name brand and all that stuff, and invest in your brother-in-law or your sister friend who just started a business, and help her springboard off of that, and keep the money here. Once we stop spending money, they're gonna start listening, because it's all the real the color they really interested in is green.
Yeah.
That goes back to what Tiffany said earlier about social media. We don't just use social media as just like colorism as a person, but we use that when it comes to certain name brands and stuff. You're not that guy if you don't have on the Gucci, the Louis, and then we downplay each other. But what's wrong with my sweatpants that came from down the block because they don't got a check on it? I'm not that guy.
Right. What's wrong with my better me, better we shirt? Like, like it ain't.
We should be spending that, buying that more than buying
I'm
that.
just saying,
Online.
and
Let's
like,
invest big on.
right,
But here's the
right.
sad part. People don't get everything is made in the same warehouse. So when you're paying $200 for a purse and paying $20 for a purse, it was made in the same place. So at the end of the day, you wasting your money and your time on somebody who's never going to give you anything back.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Michelle said in our comments, it's time to define a new norm. In 2021, you would think that we would not have to reintroduce who we are to the world, but it is necessary. Platforms such as this will provide knowledge where there was once ignorance. Thank you for this. Keep it going. So thank you so much, Michelle. I agree. And I would want to take my hat off. I know I've done this for the millionth time, but you ladies really brought it today. Like really brought it. And I just have one last question for you guys, because again, in the essence of time, I don't want it to be another 2.5 hour episode, because I know we can talk about this forever. Zakia said in our comments, know what you bring to the table and never be afraid to eat alone or be alone, or better, you build your own table, like Liza said, right? And then Eric said in our comments, like, this is true. Natalie said green. Desi said facts. Natalie said in our comments, recycle our dollars. And that's something that we'll be talking about really soon. Nikki said in our comments, some of these designers will publicly say they don't make clothes for Black people, and we still buy it.
Jordan did that. Michael Jordan with his sneakers, and everybody wanted to pay $300, and he said his sneakers is meant for these white college kids, but we still go out as the parents buying ourselves $300-400
Yeah.
sneakers for somebody that doesn't even support me. And as a Black man,
Yeah, yeah. And Desi said in our comments, just to think about it, today is the anniversary of the destruction of the Black Wall Street.
yeah,
Right. So that's a fun fact. And now seeing all of these things, right, and hearing all of these things, it's really time for us to make a change and do something different, right? So my last question for you guys is, And then when we thinking about colorism, and you hear or you say this to your children or someone that you love or something of that sense, and you hear the term, "You are beautiful." For you, you are handsome because I
Call
won't
me
call,
beautiful.
I won't call you beautiful. But I'll start with you, Sheba. When you hear the term "you are beautiful," what does that mean to you?
Honestly, just me as a whole. I don't really see it as my hair, my shape. I've been a couple of different shapes. Depending on where I live at, I'm in a couple of different colors. If I'm in the heat, and if I'm in the shade. So, I'm beautiful. I am beautiful inside and out. And to me, your beauty that's within shines with on your outside. So that's kind of what matters. If you're not beautiful on the inside, it ain't gonna take you anywhere.
I like that. I like that. And for you, Andre, what do you when you hear the term, you're handsome? Like, what does that mean to you?
But I can be beautiful.
You are
Nah,
you are a little pretty. I will say you are a little pretty.
my favorite brother. But no, it's just in a general sense of like being like handsome. It's just as a person. I don't always. It's like what she said too. It's not always about physical appearances, but it's about that personality, who I am as a person, who makes me who I am. So that doesn't only just reflect on the outside, but just as a general, like,
Okay,
and then like especially like being black, like
like it's
love.
beautiful.
It really is. You love who you are. Like if you don't love you, you gotta love yourself before anything.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. I definitely do. Um, Liza, when you hear the term "you are beautiful," what does that mean to you?
It means my heart, my spirit, my the energy that I put into something. I feel the same way Sheba does. It's not, I don't look at it as something, I've never felt it that way. I've never received it that way as something external. It's more who I am and what I bring.
I
So I'm grateful for that.
love that. I love that. Very very internal. Eric said in our comments the essence of you. And I really like that. Carla, how about you? When you hear the term "you're beautiful," what does that mean to
Um, I don't really like compliments. For the simple fact because growing up, I was a tomboy. I played male-dominated sports, and so I didn't come into my womanhood until college. But it was then that I saw it was more of a facade because when people say you're beautiful, they're most likely talking about your exterior look. And so when I hear that, it takes me back to my ancestors. I'm beautiful because of the blood that runs in my veins, because of those that fought for me to be here, for those that had to go through whatever they needed to go through for me to look the way I do, for my family to look the way that they do. Um, and when I say look, I mean the struggle that they've been through, the power that they continue to have, the resilience that they have in order to move forward, regardless of how physically they look, because you could physically look beautiful but be internally dying. You can internally be unhealthy. um, and so I think when people say you're beautiful, I think it's very superficial. I would rather hear like, wow, I've never heard that being said, or uh, where did you read that from, or where did you get that information? That's beautiful to me, because the word and the meaning of beautiful, and what society has put with it is physical. And like Kanye West said, my friends couldn't recognize me if I was uh, Tom, what was it, Tom Cruise from Vanilla Sky. When he had that accident, he was completely shattered. One day you may not have your looks. So where is your beauty coming from? My beauty comes from my ancestors, that they did things that I don't have to go through, that allows me to speak my truth in any atmosphere or table that I'm at. So
you? I like that. I definitely do, and I think I wish I would have went first. Honestly, after hearing all,
You got
I
to.
wish I would have went first. Next time I'm going first before I ask a question like this, because y'all done dropped the mic, y'all done shut it down. I don't know how I'm gonna follow this up. But just I guess I'll go in a general sense. For me, when I hear the term, you're handsome, or when I say it to my children, to people who I love, or people who I just genuinely, believe that about, right? If I give that compliment and tell someone they're beautiful, they're pretty, they're handsome, I really want to just agree with all of you guys, right? All of the above. Your outward appearance is nice. You keeping yourself together. Your hair may look nice, or your makeup, or your shape up, or your waves is spinning, right? Like that. You keeping yourself together. That's cool. But we can have conversation. Like I love what you bring to the table. I love what you bring to the table as a person, not just for my sake, right? Because right now we're doing a podcast, right? Like this is my podcast. I'm excited about what you ladies bring to the table after this conversation. Like you get what I'm saying? Like the people who are surrounded by you, how their lives will be affected just because of who you are. Like, and Andre as well, like, a lot of things, like you'll hear him say, he'll be like, yeah, remember we had this conversation. Like he affects my life, just me being around him. That's you get what I'm saying? And for me, like you guys said, it's that inside, that inner glow. And I think that's what we got to get to in order to eradicate colorism, get to a point where beauty is 90% or 99% within 1% shape up and lashes, right? We got to get to that point. And for me, I think for me, I just want to, as Devon said in our comments just now, he said, you know, not just he said, Andre and Trey, you guys are really pushing the culture forward, but we all are, right? Everyone who's a part of this conversation, like we're really pushing the culture in a different direction. It all starts with a simple conversation, right? Like a simple conversation, right? Has to start somewhere, right? The Underground Railroad, I'm pretty sure they didn't get to the north in their first try, right? Or you always hear that saying Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So, but it starts with these small conversations. So in the essence of time, because I don't want to keep you guys too long, and I appreciate you guys for sticking with us this long. Even my panelists, I know you guys have a lot to do, and we're all busy people, multiple businesses, and Liza actually just got off of work and jumped right on to this conversation with us. Carla was telling me she was having quite a day. Sheba was having quite a day. Andre was asleep when I got here, right? I was asleep. All right. You always say that,
I was
right?
resting my
I was
eyes.
resting my eyes, right? And you guys all stopped what you were doing to be a part of this conversation. Everybody in our comments, you guys have a life. Like everybody who's watching these videos, you guys have a life. Like you could have been doing anything else, even if it was an app, even if it was watching reality TV. But you guys chose to be here with us, and I truly, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you guys for being a part of this conversation. And Andre, I want to start with you. Is there anything that you have for our viewers before we head out?
I just appreciate being a part of this. Not much. This
Pushing the
is a this
culture.
should have been had me on here. I feel like this is that conversation you sit at the table when we really would be here all night, like 10 hours having this conversation, and like it's knowledge. Knowledge is key, and like hearing everything I was saying, like
Yeah,
it learned a lot from it. Definitely did. Like learn from everybody, and then like it's always good to hear different perspectives on everything.
yeah, definitely. I agree. How about you, Chiba? Anything you want to leave our viewers with before we get out of here?
As the title of the podcast says, I believe that the better we heal ourselves, the better we can heal not just our communities, but the world. At the end of the day, there was a reason why it all started where it started, which means there was a reason for us to heal the world. It's just now you got to do the work.
Yeah, got to do that groundwork. It's one thing to talk the talk, right? It's one thing to say. I want us to be united. I can say that until my face is blue, but did I have a conversation about uniting us, right? Did I create a platform where we can all come together and push certain agendas and talk about different things, right? So like you said, yeah, it's time to get our feet in the mud, get our hands dirty, and get to work. Liza, is there anything you want to leave our viewers with before we get out of here?
I just want to say that I'm so grateful to have been asked to be part of this panel and to be able to have the opportunity to build with other people, like-minded people, even when we don't necessarily have the exact same views on everything. Being able to dialogue and again build, it was just such a blessing, and I hope that you guys keep doing this and keep doing the good work, and that it's clear to me, with Carla and Shiva, that they're doing it individually as well in their own. So it's, back to that whole adage, think globally, act locally. And we need to just keep doing that. We're going to move forward.
Nice, nice. I agree. And you know, I'm not just gonna take my hat off to Sheba and Carla. Liza, you're doing the work as well. So I definitely want you to just pat yourself on the back as well. You ladies, Andre included, are
Yes,
all
ma'am.
amazing, all amazing. So I want you ladies to all pat yourself on the back because you ladies have been nothing short of amazing. Um, Carla, did you did you have anything you wanted to talk to our viewers about before we got out of here?
Yeah, I'm just honored that I was asked to be here. I think all the queens on here are doing amazing. I don't do well with public speaking, so I was a little nervous about coming on and just my energy. Always, one of my things that I struggle with is my energy is always taken negatively, even when I'm passionate about something. And so this is something that I'm passionate about because, we're all a work in progress, and we can all, work together to overcome the oppression that we're all in, because that's what it is. We're in oppression, and we've been in oppression for years, decades. And so um, it's not on us, it's in us to keep moving forward. And so whatever is put on us is not what is in us. And so what's in us is what's going to propel us to go forward and to move our people forward. I always say our people because we are each other's family. We are all we have. We are the saviors we're looking for. We don't need to be saved. We are the people that are going to take our people where we need to be. And just what Sheba said, we will heal our people and those others around us along the way. So um, it's not on us, it's in us, and we're gonna continue this fight. And I'm so honored to be here. I'm so honored to be able to share space with all of you, and know that there's like-minded people and that we're all fighting the fight together. So it's not on us, it's in us. So thank you.
I like that. It's not on us, it's in us. You said
Yeah.
you had something
No,
else?
no, and I said, and it was so good, like the way she just said it too. And it's something that a good friend of mine, like, she usually always tells me, and it's so true. And like when she said, like, we got to start with each other. But one thing, like, I hear, and like, I listen, I say this quote to myself almost every day: if you don't love you, who's gonna love you?
Right,
It starts with us,
right,
and then it's as a community building ourselves. Like,
right,
it's just if you don't love you, who gonna love you? We got to
right,
start somewhere.
right. Gotta start somewhere. And I love it. Like I know I've said that a million times. But for myself, I'm just excited to be able to be back with you guys. I know I've been on a little hiatus for you guys that's been following the podcast. But I've been trying to make improvements. As you guys can see, the setup is a bit different. There are a lot of different things that you guys are able to see, and things of that sort, things that we're able to do. The page is now up and running. The podcast has its own page now. So, just a lot of different improvements I was trying to make for you guys, to make it easier for you guys, to make sure I can interact with you guys the way that we love to interact, with each other. So thank you guys for waiting on me on this little hiatus and tuning in for this very, very important conversation. I appreciate you. To my panelists. You ladies all did amazing. Carla, I feel like you might have bamboozled me when you said that you were nervous because I couldn't tell. So I think she just said that, just, I don't know if she was trying to make somebody feel comfortable, but I don't think she was nervous. I couldn't tell. All of the panelists, I feel like they've been to 100 rallies, and they're the ones with the megaphone. Because all of you ladies and Andre, you guys all seem like you speak for a living. So you guys were amazing. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. All of the viewers, if you viewed, commented, liked, shared, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Thursday, you guys will have the illustration for the next episode, which will be on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right. So you can get that information for the next episode. Make sure you like the Facebook page, facebook.com/a better me, a better we. Or you can, if you're watching the video, you can just click the link to the page and get directly there. Um, and before we head out, I just want to let you guys know that a better me equals a better we. I'll see you guys next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys have a great night.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.